Eazr, Health Now, Education Now, Pay Later. I'm your host Kunnjal, and today we are joined by a remarkable athlete, Aadit Zaveri. We dive into the inspiring journey of an athlete who has defied limits and embraced challenges across multiple sports disciplines. His journey spans from junior swimming and gymnastics to achieving world squash rankings and tackling ultramarathons. Join us as we explore his path of resilience, dedication, and the pursuit of athletic excellence. So, Adit, let's start with the first segment of the podcast, which is From Splash to Smash, shaping a sporting passion. So, your journey in sports began at a very young age as a junior professional swimmer and gymnast. How did your early experience in these sports shape your passion for athletics?
Yeah, so I come from a sporting background.
Right.
My dad was a three-time national champion swimmer in 100-meter butterfly, and his sister was also a national champion in table tennis.
Okay.
So for us, sports was really important. And as a kid, I started swimming because of my dad, and I did really well in swimming and gymnastics. But I didn't find like that was my calling at a really young age. But I still gave it everything, and it really taught me a lot of hard work. It taught me really how to be disciplined at a very young age, which just kind of showed me also winning at a young age helps you. Losing, of course, but when you start winning a little more, you start developing a taste of what that feels like. And then you just want more and more of that. And I think that's what sport is about.
It kicks on the hunger once you go
Exactly.
and achieve.
A little taste of blood, then you just want more.
True. Okay, so it's important for parents to encourage their children, as your parents had a sports background and they encouraged you to get into swimming or gymnast or whatever your passion you wanted to follow in sports. Can you elaborate on how this foundation impacted on your athletic journey and contributed to your achievements?
Yeah, I think it all starts at a really young age. For me, it was practically from the age of 3. I started to maybe even 2. I started swimming at a competitive level, not like under 5, under 4, and at a club level. Very small. But that whole journey started. My dad is obviously he's very successful in the swimming field, and he just wanted to really push me. So initially, there was obviously as a kid you don't want to be swimming at 4 and 5 in the morning. But what it did to me was it really kind of pulled something out of my belly, in terms of the fire, and set me into this whole journey of my life. My whole life has been about sport, and it truly has shaped my entire character and personality based on sport and athletics in general. So.
Right. So, what advice would you like to give parents to nurture the young generation who are, because it's a stereotype of tradition which is coming like you're not gonna earn from sports. It's a very basic fundamental question which comes to any parent's mind when it comes to just concentrating on sports. So, what advice would you like to give in those lines?
Look, I think to earn from sport in most sports in the world, unless you're top 5 or top 10 in the world, like the elite of elite, is very hard to make a living.
Right.
Even if you're playing tennis, unless you're top 30, 40 in the world, it's very hard to make a full living. But the character, the discipline, the winning mentality, the work ethic, everything that it gives you is going to last you a lifetime. And I have only positive words for any parent wanting to put their kids into any sport. It doesn't matter what the sport is, but just put them to anything. It's just going to teach them a very, very good work ethic at a really young age. And that can ripple into different parts of your life. You want to do business, you want to do art, you want to be a poet, whatever it is. But you will have the same mentality for everything, which is that hopefully you want to be the best, or at least you'll work towards being the best version of yourself, which is all we can ask for today.
Right. And sports would push them to, inculcate that in the other fields of
exactly, anything,
life as well.
Especially business, anything. It'll just really go into every field that you put yourself into. So definitely would recommend all parents to push their kids into sport.
True. Adit, we've learned that you've quit your full-time job, which would require a very, that would be a very bold decision of yours at the age of 25 to get into the professional level of squash.
Correct.
So what made you to decide on letting go of your profession?
Yeah, so that is a slightly longer answer. I'll try to
we have all years.
Condense it, but I was working in New York in finance, an amazing company, and it was a hedge fund actually, which for most people is a dream, and for me too it was a dream. I graduated in 2014 from college in America, where I was the squash captain for my team and also really playing squash full time in college. But then I was kind of mentally saturated, so I said I'll put all this hunger that I have into wanting to be the best, but in finance. And I got really lucky to get this job. So I worked about 2.5 years, and did really good with it. But then I think squash is a biological clock. You can't really play at a very high level post 33, 34. The body just can't do what it does at 25 anymore. And I think I just woke up one morning saying, wait, if I don't try going professional and trying to play for my country or trying to be a professional in squash, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Because I said, I can work for the rest of my life, but I can't be an athlete forever, at least in squash. And I spoke to my boss about it, and he thought I was a little crazy, but he knew me really well, and he said, look, like, go for it, just go for it and give your best to it. And that's what made me do it. I took pretty much a one-way ticket back to Bombay and then straight to Cairo, where I lived for 5 years, and gave myself the best opportunity to succeed in professional squash. And mainly because I gave it my whole life, I was like, I'll regret not doing this. And I had an amazing 5 years.
Great. So, learning that you were a swimmer and gymnast at a very young age to squash. So, how did that transition of so many sports diversion happen in your journey?
So the swimming was because of my dad. I was put into it, and gymnastics. I was just a very, active child. I would kind of jump around and I'd fall all the time and just be clumsy. So my mom and dad were like, "Why don't we put you in gymnastics?" And I eventually became like the district champion in gymnastics in Maharashtra. At the time, I was like 10 or 9. But both of them didn't have much scope in India at the time for a lot of success, maybe now almost like 20 years ago. So then my dad used to also play squash and at like a inter-college, interstate level. And they said, why don't we try something different? And within putting me into squash within maybe 1 year, 1.5 years, I was India number 2 at the under 11 category. So from really not playing to being there, it was just like, okay, we clearly think this is the right sport for you.
Right. In a splash of time, you've just gained on that.
I loved it, and the passion. I just wanted to play more and more, and I didn't want to go home. Versus swimming and gymnastics, I was not as hungry, but squash was just all day, every day I would do it.
Right. So when you consider all these 3 sports, swimming is now being a little more, adapted by the Indian culture because of the Ironmans and the other competitive events which are going around. But when we speak about gymnastics and also the squash, the infrastructure is not built to a great extent.
Right.
Also, there are not much of competitions which happen, which people are aware. At least they might be happening, but people are not aware about the competition which happens for these 2 events. So in that case, how did you evaluate it? Like, you want to go for this sport, you found out that it's gonna exemplarily good. You're able to do that. So how did you do that?
So I think, this is many years ago now, but at 11 and 12, I think we didn't think so far ahead.
Right.
We just said, he's doing really good at it. He's enjoying the sport. Let him play as many local tournaments at that time. So there was like the CCI tournament, the Bombay Gym tournament. So like all the local national level tournaments that were there, we just entered whatever. And they were the same circuit every year, 7-8 tournaments that we play. So that's kind of just how we said, let's do it. And then the results kept coming and I kept going better and better. So it was just like, we'll do the best we can in India, And then the global stage came a few years later when I went to boarding school.
Right. So how do you see these sports, the 3 sports, when you were at an early age and when you compare it at this point of time? How do you see that sport growing, or has it evolved over the period of time? And how much scope do you feel that it can still evolve at a better stage?
So I can't speak much to gymnastics now because at least in India, I haven't been in touch with that sport for years. But I can definitely see a massive change in swimming and squash as well. Squash I've played practically the last 20 years. There's been a ton more of tournaments, a lot more funding. The Indian squash government has helped a lot. Local personal people who love the sport try to sponsor more events. So there's definitely been a big jump. But of course, we always want more. We want more tournaments, we want more players to play, we want more footprint and footfall in the squash community. And swimming again, I've seen that because of the whole Ironman triathlon space, that a ton more people have to swim, which is great. In terms of competition specific, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but squash definitely has grown significantly.
That's amazing to know that, because people who might be inclined towards that sport might still feel a loophole that it's not much popular in India.
Yeah, I think everything almost is always compared to cricket
True.
and hockey and now kabaddi.
Kabaddi, yeah.
So they are on such a large and mass scale in India that all the other sports are going to be shadowed. But relative to where squash was many years ago, it's grown a lot.
Great, great,
Yeah.
great. So Adit, you've achieved an impressive rank of 145th in the world and a professional squash player. Can you share some of the discipline and hard work that went into reaching that level of success in the squash?
Oh yeah, that's not to do a podcast on that, but it was so many years of consistency of hard work. That's
Right.
I would say there's three things, like there's no real recipe to success, and 145th is 145th. There were so many players better than me, but I think hard work trumps everything. That you have to be hardworking. There's no shortcut. Simple. Have to put in the work. The good days you have to train, but the bad days you have to train also.
True.
And the second thing is the consistency of that hard work. You can't just work hard for 3 days out of 7 or 4 days. You have to work 6 out of 7 days at least to get consistent results. And the third thing is, I think, patience.
Okay.
You can't expect anything overnight. You have to work hard consistently for years for you to achieve success in something.
Right.
So, and also sacrifice. I lived so many years abroad. I left home when I was 15 and I came back at 30. I stayed 15 years away from my family, my friends.
That was a crucial period of your life as well, when you required your family and friends.
Exactly, and my parents saw a lot of potential in me to let me go. I'm an only child, so for them to also let me go at such a young age, they had to sacrifice a lot. So I think there's so many factors, but hard work, consistency, patience, and discipline. You have to have these things to succeed in anything, but especially sport.
So you've got your trainings majority abroad.
Correct.
Not from India.
Yeah.
So when you speak in terms of the training levels in India, how do you see the sport evolving, or are there any training institutions which are providing a good level of international trainings in the sports background?
So the thing is, in squash, there are, there's our national centers in Chennai, which is run, fairly well. They've produced a lot of champions, for sure. But in terms of the global stage, I still think we're slightly behind, just because of the exposure that people like. I was in Cairo, and Cairo, Egypt is the #1 place for all top squash players in the world. That's why I went there.
True.
I didn't speak Arabic. I went all alone. I just knew a coach over there. That's it. And I'd never been there, but I went alone because I got to train with actual world champions every day. Now, because they have all the access and resources, then if I can train with someone who's top 10 in the world versus someone who's my level, of course you're going to improve a lot more with someone who's so high up. And that's what we lack. We don't have the volume of players at that level. So we definitely are back in that. That's why most top players, at least top 8, top 4 in Indian global ranking, have traveled. They all travel abroad. They work, they train abroad. They come back because they have to obviously represent India, so they have to train in the facilities in India as well, the national center. But most of them have lived abroad and trained abroad for most of their life.
Also, the horizon would increase as you are getting trained, with the professionals who have been in the industry since a long duration.
And to be, for example, in tennis, like a Roger Federer or a Nadal, right? They're great, and any tennis player would kill to go train with them. For me, it was the same. Cairo had, for me, in terms of my level, tried to train with the world champion was like a Nadal or Federer in squash. I got to do that. I got to live a dream that most kids would literally kill for.
Right.
And I think that's what these places have, which India doesn't have.
So you're fortunate enough to get
Fortunate, really serendipity, right place, right time. Knew the right people to put me in touch with the right people. My parents financially, have backed me my entire journey. So much gratitude towards them, because without the financial backing, you can't do any of this. No chance.
Also, the hard work and dedication of yours is another factor who has led you.
Of course, yeah. Without that, then there's nothing matters.
How much ever training you get from any of the coaches does not lead you anywhere.
Absolutely.
Right. So, becoming a national and a state level champion in squash requires immense dedication and sacrifice. Can you take us through the typical day in your life during a squash training?
Yeah.
And what were some of the biggest challenges you faced along the way?
So, I think we as people always want to put in a certain amount of work and hope the result is equal to the amount of work. where the output is equal to the input. But that's not how it works. I might be able to train really hard for 1 year and lose almost every match, but suddenly one tournament I win everything. You know, we wanted to correlate. Oh, I'll put in so many hours and that means I'll win so many matches. That's not how it works. So that is one of the hardest things to deal with as an athlete, that you will face a lot of failure. And unfortunately, as a junior, I never got to number 1 in India. I was number 2 at one point, but that's part of life. You know, I was very happy to be top 4 and number 2 at one point, but you know, in sport like squash, unless you win the final match in the final day, you're still considered a loser to some degree, right? Unless, even in the finals, if you lose, you don't win the tournament, right? Only the champion is won. So if 64 people play a one tournament, which can be 5 rounds, 6 rounds, only one person is considered a champion. But everyone still won certain amount of rounds, so you still have a winner's mentality. But failure is a big part of sport, and how you deal with failure is extremely important in how you succeed in your life.
Right. So you've brought a very good point. How did you overcome these setbacks? Because you know, we see Aadit as a professional 145th rank holder in the world as a professional squash player, but there would be some time when it was not that great day of your life, which led you to just lose by a single bit point, and seriously, I can understand how you might be feeling. So how did you manage that setback?
So when I started the Professional Squash Association, it's called PSA Squash, which is like for tennis ATP, for squash is PSA. I started at the bottom of the ranks. You just sign up for the membership and you have 0 points to start. And I started like 600-700 in the world, and within 2.5 years I got to about 100 and top 150 in the world, which was a really fast rise. But there were so many setbacks. I can't even explain to you. Every day you have a setback. Every day, either there's an issue with your body, or you train really hard and you lose a match. I was away from home, so I miss my family a lot. I was living in a country where I didn't really have any social friends because of the language was a big barrier. Arabic, I didn't speak Arabic. I had to learn it slowly. So all those things, there was so many setbacks. But the one thing I had in myself was undeniable belief that I can do really good if I keep going. It's just about one more step we take, one more decision we take positively, and belief like, okay, that today is not good, okay, tomorrow will be good. The power of not giving up is a secret. The genius is actually to not give up. When you give up, it's almost like you lose, right? But if you keep going one more day, and of course having an incredible support team around you, to have family, friends, at the time, my fiance, my girlfriend now, my wife, my parents, my coach, they were just such rock solid support to me. So the days that I couldn't push myself because I was finished, they would say, we believe in you, we love you, don't worry, it doesn't matter, like your life is not going to change. All those things are so pivotal to overcoming any failure, because failure is inevitable in life. No one wins all the time in anything we do. So how we deal with failure, the attitude we have towards it, is more important than the failure itself. And slow and steady, once you start seeing winning and you start getting better results, then the failure becomes part of the process.
You adapt to it, and you get motivated when you have those winning cards in front of you. Those negative points are a little bit on the lower side.
And in fact, you have to start embracing failure. It's part of life.
True. Okay, so Aadit, from swimming to gymnastics to squash and now ultramarathons, you've explored various sports disciplines. How each of these experiences contributed to your athletic development, with unique skills of lessons you've gained from each, and how each were in tandem with each other, which was quite.
So the swimming and gymnastics at a young age was really good in tandem because it actually gave me a very good, strong physical base. Swimming is a very hard sport, not impact wise, but it's very, very hard. It's a very lonely sport. You don't have any support, you're quietly under the water the entire time, so you have to be okay with your own thoughts for a long time. And gymnastics overall is just such a good sport to get a very solid foundation for being an athlete. The strength, the flexibility, the mobility, the explosive power, all of that gave me a very good base to be a good athlete at a young age. Squash, on the other hand, is it's like almost master of all trades. You have to be very fast, you have to be fit, you have to be mentally strong, tactically, technically. So it gives you a very well-rounded physical ability to play any sport again. If I want to go into tennis, I feel I have a good chance. If I want to be a runner, as I've done into ultramarathons, I had such a good base. So squash gave me a bit of everything, especially the mental side. Sport is, we say it's actually 10% physical, 90% mental. Given the fact that you work hard on your body, you have to have a base. And then finally to ultramarathons, I just loved running. And COVID actually taught me that I loved running, because in COVID we couldn't train. There were no courts, there were no players, everything was shut down. But what we could do is run. We had all the space to run, so I would just run a lot during COVID to stay fit. But then what I realized is I actually love it as a sport, and that's finally how the transition, when I was kind of finishing squash about 9-10 months or 1 year, I said, let me try getting into something different.
So, Adit, describe the process of training under professional squash champions. How did this opportunity arise, and what were the key benefits you gained from the mentorship?
So there's like two parts. So one, when I went to boarding school in England, my coach there was a 7-time world champion. His name was Jonah Barrington. He's much older now, he's almost 80. But when I went, he was roughly about like 62, 63, but he was one of the greatest squash players ever. And my teammate at the time was a world junior champion, and his younger brother was also a younger world junior champion.
Great.
So being around them at such a young age, and our head coach Ian Thomas as well, like, it was such an unbelievable team to be around, that coming from India where we didn't have all that, going there, my game just elevated itself. Just being around them, listening to how they think, talking to them, seeing them train, being on court, understanding that what it takes to be a champion. It starts at a very young age. When I would think, it's 5 in the morning and it's so cold, I see a world champion training, I better be training.
True.
A lot of my really hard work ethic started at that time. And then going many years forward, when I went to Egypt, and I was around all of them. I was around literally from, there are these people in squash where, if anyone listens, there's Raneem Gulevi, Tariq Momin, Marwan Shabagi, Muhammad Shabagi, my coach Haitham Ashoosh. He trained many of these players, all the top players, and I got very lucky to train with him. And the one thing that champions just do differently is they train, they think, they act like a champion long before they're champions.
Sure.
You don't become a champion one day. It takes years of being like that, behind the shadows, to become a champion under the lights one day. And that's what I learned, that you have to emulate being a champion long before you are a champion. Whether you become or not, you can't really control. But I trained, I slept, I ate, and I tried my best to perform like a champion every single day of my life, including today. Just how the mentality is, and that's what I learned from them.
True. So the positive mindset around you, helped you in gaining that confidence of being a professional squash champion.
Exactly.
Great. In terms of technical aspect, what were the specific areas of your game that you focused during your training with professionals?
So we consistently work on the physical aspect. The fitter, the stronger, the faster you are, it's going to help you for sure. But for me and my coach at the time, it was more about unlearning certain bad habits I learned as a kid.
Okay.
And unlearning bad habits takes time, as 25. So we took a long time to just understand better technique on how to swing the racket, how to perfectly hit the ball, how to move to the ball and back. All those very small things that are not small actually, they make your game way more efficient.
True.
So all those things me and my coach worked on every day for 4 years. Every single day.
Super. Okay. Adit, can you discuss on the notable training methodologies or strategies imparted by professional champions that significantly improved your performance in squash?
I would not say there was few specific methodologies, but it was just being on court with better players every day.
Okay.
Of course we had tactics and matches and all, but in every day you're not playing matches with people. You play a tournament once a month, once in 6 weeks. But every day you train with champions. And being on court with them, seeing them, being outside the court, asking them hundreds of questions, and I became such good friends with all of them. So I had no, I can't ask this, I can't ask that. I asked as many questions, and I learned and absorbed. And I think it was just being around them, being on court, playing with them, losing, winning, losing, it's fine. I just learned as much as I could from them.
Okay. So, of course, from all 7 days, you might not be training that hard for those 7 days. So, how was you training in those off days of yours when you were just recovering, or you were just in an initial phase of learning? How did you do that?
So generally speaking, we would train 6 days a week,
Okay.
and we train minimum twice a day,
Okay.
and sometimes thrice a day. So we're
Okay.
doing between 15 and 18 sessions of training a week, 6 days,
Okay.
for 6 days. But the last day would be really just enjoying the time off. I didn't have much time because I was living there. I would have to do my laundry alone, and I have to cook my food and all of those things. But I would just try to relax, watch some shows, eat good food. Because we're burning so many calories in squash, we also need to replenish the muscles and the protein and everything. So relax, sleep, kind of get a swim in if you feel, go for a walk, watch a movie, go to the cinema, just do normal things,
Great. So, Adit, how did the training environment and the presence of elite athlete influence your motivation and drive to excel in the sport?
So much. Yeah, like to see someone who's at their best already and still wanting to work made me think, if they can do it, I can do it. And it came to a point where I started wanting to inspire people. I said, look, none of my friends had left their job in New York or left this and gone to Cairo and lived alone for 4.5 years with no friends and just trained every day. So it came to a point where a lot of people started looking up to me. I'm not saying necessarily squash players, I mean friends, other athletes, squash players as well in Cairo. Some world champions weren't believing what I was doing. They're like, my God, like you literally left your whole life to come here and play squash. You're not earning money from it. And I said, yeah, because this is going to give me more character than anything will, And I think it was being around those people, listening to them, talking to them, having fun, and seeing how hard they work for so many years made me say, I can do this too. And I did it. I did it for 4.5 years. I would have done it for a lot longer in my life if I had started earlier. But it was more about learning from them and trying to take that, be the best version of myself, and then inspiring people around me.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as you've mentioned, your dad was also a squash player. So, do you and your dad have that?
No, I really would beat him badly. I'm sorry. In swimming, I was nowhere close to as good as he is, but he was more like, into club level. But of course, at a young age, when I was so much younger, he was much stronger and stuff. But of course, he still tries to give me advice. I don't listen. But
that's his
even though I became a champion in my own right in squash, he would still tell me what to do, and I would listen, and I'd say, okay.
He'll feel happy that
I feel happy, so I'm like, okay, let him feel happy,
True. So when your parents were away from you, how did they back you in terms of maintaining that frequency that you required at that point of time to achieve that level of?
So, that is really, that was a tricky thing because when I left, when I was 15, like almost 16 years ago now, at that time there was actually not much social media.
True.
Facebook had just about come out.
Right.
So there was no way of me keeping in touch from boarding school much with my parents except once every few days we could have a phone call. But I was very independent at a young age, and whenever I would talk to them or I would get a chance to, the love was so unconditional. It was simply amazing. My relationship till today with my parents is amazing. Touch wood, I'm so blessed to be around them because I would like to say that, my dad taught me how to hunt, but my mom taught me how to love. And you have to have the best of both, because you can sometimes feel so lonely without your parents for years in a row. So they supported me. I mean, whatever I wanted to do, they said go do it. So, no question.
Great. So when they saw you winning that 145th rank, what was that pride moment which they would have felt when you achieved that?
Like breaking 150 in the world would have been a really big achievement for me, and it took a long time, and I was very close. I was like 150, 155 for a long time because COVID also happened. Actually, out of 4.5 years of playing squash, I lost 2.5 years just in COVID. So actually, my whole professional journey was about 2.5 years. Which is really heartbreaking because I think I could have done a lot better, and I had beaten players, above me in ranking. But to actually get to that level consistently in ranking, you have to play many tournaments to keep getting points to go up. But I didn't get that opportunity mainly because of COVID. I started in 2017 and 2018, and COVID came 2020. So in 2 years after that, it really kind of went down in terms of tournaments. But when I broke 150, I wasn't with them, but when I got the news and they found out, we were just so proud, that I worked so hard, and of course, I wanted to break top 100 in the world, and I believe heart of hearts I could have done it for sure. It's just that timing wasn't on my side, but even 145 for me was enough. I felt very proud because I know what I had to I know what I had to go through to get there.
Right, right. Do you have any plans in getting that 100, under 100 rank still into squash, or you've transitioned?
Yeah, if I had to do that, I would have had to live in Cairo for a few more years and let COVID completely pass, fully play tournaments again, and that becomes like a whole lifestyle. I would not have been able to get married as I did recently and come back and take over our family business, which I do, and do Ultramarathon. There's too much going on, and we never really knew when COVID was going to end.
True.
That was our problem. It was never that can I stay there or not. I could have stayed there more years, but just staying and training all day without tournaments was, I'm not in India helping out here, or I'm not there even competing. So we made a decision 2022 last year to say, okay, by end of last season, if COVID really hadn't opened up tournaments and stuff like that, then we would make a decision and come home. And I was happy with that. We waited long enough,
Right.
Yeah.
So do you have any feelings of going back to squash?
As of now, no.
Okay.
I think maybe, inshallah, when I have children, I definitely want to at least have a few, days on court with them. I will never force anyone to do anything, but because I've given it my whole life, I think I have a lot to give forward to my kids. So maybe that time. I do help 1-2 kids in squash right now as I coach them.
Okay.
More because I love the game.
Right.
I've given it my whole life, and I have a lot of, now, I would say, wisdom in sport. I can give a lot of knowledge to people. So in that aspect, I'm really happy. But to compete in a sport, it is a whole life. You have to give your whole life to it. Otherwise, if you lose a match, you feel like, I know I lost. I didn't give 100%.
Right.
Yeah. So.
True. So Aadit, when it comes to giving back to the sport, and you've had a very good duration in the squash sport. So what are your plans in giving back to the squash?
Yeah, so that's why, right now I'm training 2 kids.
Right.
As much time as I can, I try to play them a few times a week, and that's at least right now what I'm trying to do. Maybe, one day when I have more time, I'll help more kids, because, a lot of people do have contact me in Bombay, given the fact that I'm a professional, I'm an ex-professional now, and, I was good, and, they would like their kids to be helped by me, but it really depends on the amount of time I can give. But I would love to help out, stay in touch with the sport, hopefully, get my kids into it one day. So as much as I can help in the sport, I would love to do it.
Okay. So do you charge anything for the
I do. I do, because, I have worked really hard to get this knowledge. I've spent years of working towards it, so I do charge them. But, I'm happy to, because then whoever comes to me is happy to even give that to me, because when you work so hard for something, I don't think we should do it for free entirely,
So we've learned that you've recently done a transition from squash during COVID.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to make this change, and how did your training as a squash player prepare you for the endurance challenges as ultramarathons?
Yeah.
Also, I would like to add on, how were you introduced to the world of ultramarathons? Because when it comes to running, there are various categories when it comes to running. So why specifically ultramarathon?
So the thing is that I think I mentioned previously was that during COVID, because squash had completely shut down, I had the access to at least open roads and stuff where I could just run to stay fit. And I think that whole 1.5 years where I ran so much, I kind of got the runner's bug, as they call it. I just said, okay, I love this. Let's see what happens. And as squash kind of started slowing down, I said, I'm a hyper-competitive person. If someone says, who's going to drink this glass of water first, I want to drink it first. So it's a little stupid, but that's just how I've grown up. And I thought,
cannot be away from the competition.
I cannot. And, I always want to win. And obviously that's not possible, but that's my mentality. So I said, let's see where I can compete. But I don't have to leave my entire life to go to a different country for that. Because like I had with squash, I had to leave everything. I said, running is something I can do anywhere. Where my coaches, he can program me something and I can run. And then when I came back to Bombay, I started thinking of a next challenge for myself, because I'm consistently want to challenge myself. And I follow this guy, his name is David Coggins. He's meant to be, a real crazy guy who's run hundreds and thousands of miles across the world. and I started listening to his podcast. And I hope someday one kid listens to this and starts
Sure,
running in the same
sure,
way,
you're happy.
because that's what said this seems like a great sport to get into on a competitive level.
Okay.
But marathons weren't enough for me because I felt so many people have done marathons.
Mhm.
But how many people can say they've run 90, 100 kilometers in one stretch?
Mhm.
That's like a whole different level of elite athletes.
Right.
And that's what drove me. The sheer challenge of doing something so difficult and conquering that challenge is what led me to ultramarathons.
Okay. So as a squash player, how smooth or how difficult was the transition to getting into ultramarathons?
It's day and night. And squash, we're running in literally a small box all day long, which is
Right.
only 2 meter sprints, 1 meter sprint, and ultra marathons is running thousands and thousands of steps and kilometers a day.
Right.
So it was day and night. But the base that squash and my entire athletic background gave me was very strong.
Right.
I knew that whatever challenge I wanted to take up, I believed in myself and my physical capabilities that I would be able to take it up. And when I went to my wife and my coach at the time saying, I had never run more than 12 kilometers
Right.
on road. 12 kilometers is not a lot.
Mhm.
And I said, I want to do 90 kilometers. Just relax, please do a half marathon first, then do.
Right.
And I said, no, that just doesn't wake me up in the morning. If I have to wake up at 3 in the morning and run, I don't care to run 21K. And I literally went from 12 kilometers to 90 kilometers in 3 months. I made up my mind and I said, whatever it takes, I will do it. And I'm proud I did it.
Great. So you were physically, as we all know, very fit because you
Yeah.
were in the sport.
Correct.
Running an X number of kilometers,
Mhm.
particularly, which is more than 42 kilometers, requires a very big, mental patience and resilience
yeah,
which goes into it.
Absolutely.
Because you have to continuously monitor your pace, your kidneys,
Exactly.
the way you
Oh
are
my
going,
God.
the nutrition part, the hydration part,
Yeah.
because your body can give up at any point of
Anytime.
time. And apart from you being into the training phase, the D-day, that is the event day, is actually more different because it
Of
requires
course.
3 months to 6 months of the nutrition part, the hydration part to be taken care of back you
Yeah.
to achieve that 90 kilometers. So how did you mentally get into that?
So funny thing is, my coach, who is my mentor now, his name is Satish Gujran, he has run the Comrades 12 times in a row.
Okay.
Absolute legend in India. When I went to him first and I told him, I've never done anything over 12K and I'm going to do 42K with you. He said, okay, calm down. And we tried it. We went 2 weeks later and I just tried 42K and it was my worst run of my life. I cramped all over, and at 30K, I completely collapsed. I could not, I didn't pass out, but my body just gave up. And I pushed and pushed until I couldn't, but I cramped all over. I had kidney and liver issues because my body went into complete failure.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the best learning experience that I had in terms of endurance sports. From that day, the way I looked at it and how professional I became and the questions I asked and everything, it led me to run 90 kilometers. And I realized how, because in squash, 1.5 hours, you don't need as much salt capsules or you don't need as much hydration. You're not burning thousands of calories in 1.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But in hours of running, you're burning so much. And that led me to the whole idea of hydration, salt capsules, food, intake, outtake, all of that. It became a whole science to me. And I really sat down and learned it. And through my training runs, I kept trying different things, what works, what doesn't work. And through 2-3 months of the longer training runs, I really learned fast.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. That is how you take care of your hydration and nutrition, and you
Yeah.
know what.
Now I do.
Yeah.
I know a lot better.
Best.
But I also did recently, I got a nutritionist on board.
Okay.
And she was incredible. Her name is Ananya.
Okay.
And I got in touch with her through another physio I used to work with. And we just found subtle solutions for the race day. Because you need to have solutions. If this goes wrong, what do I do? If I feel nauseous, what do I do? If, sometimes in ultras you urinate like blood because you're so dehydrated, and it actually happened to me in the Comrades. So we had to have solutions in place for 12 hours of running.
Right.
And that was very important, to get professional advice from someone to say, okay, this is what will work, this is what will work. So that was really helpful.
Having a plan B.
Having a plan B and sometimes plan C also, because there's so many things that can go wrong, truthfully. So,
Right. Okay, so Aadit, we would really want to know your experience when you participated in your first official time ultramarathon, the Comrades. What motivated you to take this grueling challenge, and how did you feel it in completing it in 11 hours and 4 minutes?
Yeah, so, wow. I decided to do this maybe 4 or 5 months ago,
Okay.
before the Comrades. Comrades was on June 11th
Mm-hmm.
in South Africa, from Pietermaritzburg to
Mhm.
Durban, 90 kilometers, 89. But when I when I went on the website to apply in January, right before my wedding, my
Mhm.
wife said, "You're crazy," but I said, "I'm going to do it." Actually, the entries were closed completely.
Okay.
So there was a substitute period where you can enter the
Mhm.
Comrades, which was in March and only 2.5 months, 3 months before. I was actually on my honeymoon, and I was on the computer, and she's like, what's happening? Like you're supposed to be. I said just 5 minutes, and she was obviously supportive. I'm joking, but I actually entered on 27th of March when
Okay.
we were in South Africa. Actually, no, we were in Africa at the time on a honeymoon, and I got in. I was so happy, and at that point, I was like, wow, I've actually entered. Now I have to start doing the mileage because you can't just do like 30K and run 90K. That's physically impossible.
Right.
Yeah, maybe someone can, but not me. And we planned it, my coach and me planned it very, very strategically because I wanted to accomplish to get this comrade medal. I was like, I am going to somehow go through one of the hardest races on planet Earth, and I'm going to find a way to do it. And I think just thinking of finishing it gave me so much motivation that I was like, okay, we can go through it. And the training rounds and all were really hard because we're running in Mumbai in May
Right.
and in the Lonavala and all, so it was just really difficult, but we made up our mind.
Great. Okay, so many aspiring athletes struggle with self-doubt and limitations.
Yeah.
How did you embody the concept of being limitless in your athletic
Mhm.
pursuits, and what advice would you have for others to push beyond their perceived boundaries?
Yeah, so I think my parents really started that at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
My parents always said that you can really accomplish anything you want to in life.
Right.
And they meant it. Sometimes maybe people say it just to give you that hope, but no,
Mhm.
they actually meant it. And from a young age, that's why I pursued these unique things that not many of my friends have pursued, professional sport or things like that.
Okay.
But because they gave me that real confidence at a young age, I really took that to heart and I said, I can do anything I want.
Mhm.
And given the fact that I started accomplishing success at a younger age in sport, it gave me a lot more belief. Because of course, when you have success in anything, you're going to start getting more belief in that. And that kind of gave me this limitless attitude where I said, anyone can really accomplish anything they put their mind to. Now, I'm not saying it's possible overnight,
Mhm.
but I'm saying if you put in the hours, you put in the years and be patient with it, I think it's possible.
So, when you see your transition from indoor sports like
Mhm.
squash,
Yeah.
the swimming, gymnastics,
Yeah.
all having that indoor sport
True.
environment, to ultramarathon, which is completely outdoors.
Very.
Yeah. So, how did you adjust the techniques to adapt different terrains, different mountains, or uneven surfaces?
Mhm.
Because you were used to having that flat surface training or an even surface
Right.
training when in the other sport which you were there.
Yeah.
Whereas when it comes to ultra marathons, you have ascents, you have descents, you have like
Yeah.
inclinations and the downhills. How do you manage? How did you do that?
So I think one thing I will give myself credit somewhere inside me. I've always been very open and willing to adapt to any change.
Okay.
So when I said, okay, I'm going to be doing this, of course, I obviously trained in my life outdoors because in squash or anything, you still need to run outdoors. You need to run on the track. I've run on the roads, but not these distances.
Sure.
So I obviously knew what it felt like. I knew how to deal with all that. And in Cairo, they used to sometimes make us run in like the sand and outdoor in the heat. And in Egypt, it's very hot. So I was very adjusted to different terrains, but not for so many hours. And I think I just kind of said that let's keep an open mind. Don't be fixed into, oh, this is how it's going to be or this is how it's going to be. Just say, go for it.
Mm.
Have that, again, like I come back to that champion mentality. I call it a warrior mentality because warriors really have no idea what they're going into.
Sure.
They don't. They just go to battle. Whatever it is, they have enough belief in themselves that whatever comes their way, they'll be able to manage.
Mm.
And that's how I've lived because we really don't know what's coming next. Life is unpredictable and so is sport. But if I have enough confidence in my ability, my mental strength and my body, then whatever it is, I'll manage. And that's how I kind of have taken this whole journey on.
Great. Okay. So, can you share some of the specific moments that demonstrate the lengths you went in order to pursue your dreams and succeed in sports?
Yeah, I mean, one was going to boarding school at a very young age. You know, when I left at 15, I was me and one other friend had gone abroad, but out of hundreds of kids in our school, I was one of the only one who left at a very young age. It was quite unheard of at the time. So that was a huge sacrifice for my parents and me. Then I went to college in America, which many people do, but going to Cairo was the biggest. You know, to leave a dream job, take a flight, go alone to a new country, don't know the language, train relentlessly every day for hours. Oh, all those experiences, you know, that shaped my whole mental ability and belief in myself to say, all that I can go through, then I can definitely do ultramarathoning. So, Adit, what advice would you have for athletes who are considering to make a significant transition from any sports to ultramarathons? Also, how they can effectively adapt their mindset and training for running or ultramarathon? Yeah, so the thing about ultramarathons is obviously a unique thing. As athletes or anyone, I think everyone has run to some degree in their life. Right. Whether they fast jog, they walk, they've done some sort of physical activity. Most people. So, what I would say is, you know, especially after completing the comrades, which in my life was one of my biggest accomplishments and achievements, especially in the short time frame that I managed to do it, I have never felt an elation like I did while crossing that finish line. That feeling of seeing 11 hours, 4 minutes, it was just euphoric. And I wish I could kind of explain to people that this is possible for you too. I'm not saying you have to run 90 kilometers to feel that way. But even if you never run anything, run 5 kilometers, it'll be a similar feeling for you. Right. 5 to 10, to 10 to 21. The advice I would say is just start. Don't worry about what you'll accomplish 1 month from now, 2 months from now. Just think of the day and finish it. Be very present and mindful about that day and get through that day and feel good about it. Because when you work hard and reach that feeling of euphoria, even in the one day, you want more of it. And it's an addictive feeling. Anyone will say it's addictive. So it's just about starting, because that's the hardest thing for someone to do is actually put their shoes on and leave the door. Once you're out the door, you do the work. Most people. But the initial thing is the hardest, you know, that procrastination, little laziness. I've forgotten procrastination, what it means to me, you know, like I don't even know what it means. Like my wife sometimes says, like, oh, like you don't even take a second, you just do it, like teach me. And I'm like, it's just so many years of doing it non-stop that it's become part of my DNA. And the more people start forming habits about things like that, they don't think about it, they just do it. It's like brushing your teeth in the morning and going to the bathroom, you know, you just do it. And you feel good about it. So, right. So, do you motivate your wife to come or join along the runs? So, you know, she genetically is quite fit on her own. Okay. But she's very busy. She's a psychologist and she's a therapist and she has really long hours. So she comes every now and then for like a long walk or something like that. Okay. But in terms of running, she's not that keen on it. She's like, you run, I'll look after my clients and pay a mental side. I said, okay, as long as you know, I'm probably her best or worst client as a husband, like she has to deal with me and running all these crazy marathons. But no, she does exercise in her own way. She does, you know, Pilates, yoga and stuff like that, but not necessarily running. Right. Yeah. So that is where we get to know how you get the mental focus by having you. Oh my god, like she is my biggest support. Unbelievable, you know, for someone to even accept that you're going to take on these crazy challenges, because they are crazy. And I have to wake up at 2 o'clock and go run all night, or I have to wake up at 5 o'clock, or you know, I have to be so disciplined for months on end. I can't. And Bombay is a very social city. You know, we go out, we socialize, people have alcohol. For months on end, I don't do that, and that's obviously very hard as when newly married. That is a big sacrifice on her end as well. And I recognize that. You know, I'm very grateful, because otherwise, I run the race alone, but it's a whole team sport to get you there. So that's a support huge crew, and she is number one. Her, my coach, and my parents. You know, beyond. Like, without them, it's just not possible.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So she ever comes to your any of the events to just motivate you or
Yeah,
just
yeah.
be,
It was amazing. My
share
parents and her came to the congrats.
Okay.
And in the race, we actually met 3 times. We
Okay.
met at 30 kilometers, we met at 60, and then 67. And it was such a boost of energy. And then they were at the final, at the finish line as well.
True,
And
true.
you know, those moments are so much more special when you can share them with the people you love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that is what we
That's what we
always
want, you know.
want to do, and also to aspire people to
Of
you know
course.
get into the sport.
Exactly.
True. So in terms of weather conditions, how do you factor the limits like heat, cold, wind, rain affect your training and performance in ultra running and open water swimming? What specific strategies do you employ to cope with adverse weather conditions during outdoor sports?
Yeah, so that is, you know, tricky because Mumbai itself is generally quite hot.
True.
So the good thing is it teaches you how to deal with heat, which is something that I think you really need to learn, because going to these races you're going to sweat a lot and you're going to get dehydrated, but being in Mumbai helps you with that already. You know, so training in those same conditions is always going to stimulate the feeling of being in the race. So that's why we always say train as hard as possible, because then the race day will be at least a little easier. And I actually felt that. I trained, my longest run before 90k ultra for the comrades was 65k.
Okay.
So I still had to do another additional 25k in the race, having never done it before.
Okay.
But because I trained in such heat in the Lonavala mountains and Pune mountains, that going to the 90k in comrades in cooler weather, South Africa was winter, so they you know, just was so much more adapted. Didn't feel as hard. Sometimes I feel like the 65k in Lonavala was harder than the 90k.
Just because of the winter
Just the weather,
conditions.
just sweating 5 times more here.
Hmm.
So you feel so much more dehydrated faster. So
Also, you lose on your energy more faster as
you lose
compared
energy, you lose water, you get sometimes, you know, this whole kidney and liver issue because you're getting so dehydrated. And but the supplementation, the food, the hydration, everything has to be really planned out so that you don't come to a place where you might faint or something like that.
True, true. So, when it comes to ultra races, long distance races, do you carry your meals of food along when you're going for those races?
I did, yeah. So
Okay.
I have a running vest where I carry, you know, it's very simple. I carry, for me, what works is I have jam sandwiches and they're very light in my stomach. I have a little cereal, so like, you know, any high carb, low fat things. So I like Fruit Loops, it's one of my all time favorites. So just a few bites of those. Then I have some chocolates, keep some good chocolates, you know, for energy. And then sometimes also salt, like boiled potatoes or something. So just very small quantities in your bag with water, of course. Water and electrolytes.
Okay. So, how do you prefer? Do you prefer gels when it comes to hydration?
So actually I tried gels, but
Okay.
they didn't sit well in my stomach.
Okay.
I felt a lot of nausea with gels, so after I tried it a few times and it didn't work, I just stayed away from them.
It's just trying and error every
Yeah,
time.
it's trial and error. Everyone has different systems. What works for
Mhm.
them might not work for someone else. And for me, gels didn't work, so I stuck to hydration and food.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to Adit's long distance running journey, what are your future aspirations when it comes to
Yeah.
running?
So I'm sure my team will not be happy because I'm going to choose some crazy things to do.
They are used to it, I must say that.
They are. But like, for example, my next one that I want to do is one of the hardest races. It's called the Leadville 100. So it's in America. It's I think 18 to 20,000 feet elevation, 100 miles.
Okay.
So it's 160 kilometers. Then I want to do one which we were discussing earlier called Badwater 135. So 135 miles in Death Valley, Nevada. It's meant to be the hardest foot race on planet Earth. So about 230 kilometers, yeah, non-stop. Then there's one called the Moab 240, which is 240 miles actually. So 380 kilometers in the Utah mountains. And then hopefully my last one would be that I would actually love to raise funds and run across India.
Okay.
I would love to run from the highest point of India to Kanyakumari.
Okay.
You know, hopefully get some sponsors on board and literally do like 50-60 kilometers every day for 60 days straight to cover the entire India.
Right, right. And what would be that fundraising?
You know, I would have to figure out what, but I would love to raise funds for some sort of cancer organization. And I'm a huge lover of animals.
Okay.
So some sort of welfare for animal foundation. You know, try to do the humanity thing on both ends because I think everyone needs help. And if I could raise any funds trying to do this crazy, you know, task, I would love to do that.
We wish all the success for
Thank
your future endeavors. So, you've been quite into sports now, and you've learned your transition to the ultramarathon. So, let's elaborate on ultramarathons. And the specific point would be the nutrition, hydration, gears, and equipments, and also a little bit of the recovery and injury part.
Sure.
Okay, so let's start with hydration. What is your preferred method of hydration during match? I mean, like the race day
Yeah,
for you? Okay, do you rely more on water, sports drinks, or a combination of both?
Yeah, so for me it's a combination.
Okay.
We very specifically like to have about 250 ml of water and 250 ml of either like a coconut water or some sort of BCAA intra-training electrolytes every hour that we're running. So if we're doing 11 hours, you have to consistently force yourself to drink it, because not necessarily do you feel like thirsty all the time.
Right.
But yeah, I like a mixture of both.
Okay. Also, the weather condition, sometimes does
Exactly.
not want you to have water,
Exactly.
but your body requires.
Yeah,
the
when
same.
it's like cold, where like the
Right.
comrades was, it was still winter, so you're not as thirsty. But if you don't give yourself that water and you miss it, then your race can really go bad.
True. Okay, so have you found any specific electrolyte supplement or drink that works well for you during intense training sessions or competitions?
Yeah, so I'm really grateful. Actually, I'm sponsored by Faster now,
Oh, that's
and
great.
they're an incredible company, and we just recently started this whole sponsorship with them about three and a half months ago, right before the Ultramarathons. They kind of started this whole journey with me, so I really like what they give me. I have their whey protein daily. I have their BCAAs, their intra training electrolytes. They have these really good effervescent tablets you can just put in water and drink. So that always helped me that's my basic hydration. I don't take anything special more than that, but that is like where I use all my hydration.
Okay, even on the event day?
Yeah, on the event day. So the thing is, event day there's limited amount because you can't carry for 11 hours.
Right.
So initially I'll always have that, my BCAAs with me and my water, but then through the race, then whatever they give you, you kind of have to take.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. How do you determine your hydration needs before, during, and after the match or the race? Do you have any specific strategies or calculations for the same?
Yeah, so with my nutritionist, what we calculate is on average an hour I lose about 1 liter of water
Okay.
of fluids. So we try to have about total of 500 to 600 ml of fluids in 1 hour. You can't do full 1 liter every hour. It's not possible. So we try to do half an hour. So 300 ml of water and then 300 ml of electrolytes. It's actually very specifically what I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so have you experimented with different hydration strategies such as using gels, energy drinks, and if so, yes, how did you found to be most effective or sustained energy and performance?
So yeah, for me gels, as I mentioned, didn't work. I kind of tried it, but it made me feel very nauseous each time.
Okay.
So it was just simple. I'm gonna have the water. I'm gonna have the electrolytes, and also one thing that drastically helped me, that I would say to any runner or ultramarathoner, is salt capsules.
Okay.
Because the salt and potassium and magnesium in your body, when it goes out of the hormonal balance, you will feel weak, you will feel nauseous. So if you have for me, I would have 1 salt capsule every hour or every 2 hours, depending on how hard the run is.
Okay.
Massively took away my cramping, which is extremely important, because once you start cramping in an ultra sport, if you have 2 hours more and you're cramping, practically impossible to run through.
You're not going to
So
compete.
yeah, you're practically, the race is done there, so that's a very heartbreaking thing, because maybe you can do more, but if you cramp, it's almost your body giving up. So yeah, salt capsules was very, very important to me.
Okay. And so how do you manage your hydration in long distance races when it comes to, there might be some, events where you don't like the hydration which is given by the organizers. In that case, what do you do?
So in that case, yeah, you just have to carry what you have. Like for example, comrades, they give you a specific local energy drink.
Okay.
I took what I had in my fastina, but that got over say 2 hours in the race.
Okay.
So what I did is 2 days before, I started drinking what they give you in the race.
Okay.
So just to get my body used to it, because suddenly on race day, if you go and try something new, maybe it'll affect you negatively.
Right.
So 2-3 days before, I just bought few of the bottles, kept it in my room, and was just sipping on it so that I got my body used to it. Because even I didn't really like it to be honest, but you have no choice.
Right.
You have to just adapt and say, okay, it's sugar and water. Just drink it.
So many times you've heard that you should not try anything which is new on a week before the event, because that might give you an adverse effect.
Correct.
So when you tried the new hydration which was provided by the event organizer,
Did that affect you in any which ways, or that was
No,
adapted by
so
your body or your systems?
because I started having a little of it few days before,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't affect me negatively. And at the end of the day, your body is craving sugar and salt
Right.
when you're running so much. So it didn't matter the taste. It was just more like I have to put this in because I need my body needs it. So, but yeah, you don't want to try any new foods. You don't want
Right.
to try any new salt capsule, anything like that. That might sugar and salt is still sugar and salt.
Mm-hmm.
But a new product entirely might be very adverse for you. So I don't try anything new like that.
Okay. So, when it comes to acclimatizing in terms of the weather, the food, the water supplement or the additional supplements, how do you acclimatize when you are going for long distance races
Yeah.
in all these factors?
So if it's again an international event,
Mhm.
whether it was squash or now ultramarathon, I try to go a few days before, so
Okay.
to get climatized to either the weather, everything, the weather, the atmosphere, the environment, the food, the water also sometimes can be slightly
Right.
different in places. So 2-3 days out, I like for the comrades I went almost 4-5 days before because it was such a new adventure for me. But for squash eventually I would go 2 nights before,
Okay.
get used to the hotel, the food, everything, and the courts. For us, courts are also very important.
True.
Each court in the world might be a different feel, so to acclimatize to that as well.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
great. Okay, so let's come to the nutrition part. We already know that you have your nutritionist in place
Yeah.
for your sports, but still we'd like to know a few more details about the same.
Yeah.
So, what is your typical pre-match race meal or snack, and how far in advance do you consume it? Do you have any specific recommendation for others in terms of timing and types of foods?
Yeah, so that again is, I think it depends person to person because some people like to eat 1 hour before, and some people like me, I like to be on an empty stomach as much
Okay.
as I can. So I eat typically 3 to 3.5 hours before any intense run. Like if it's like a half marathon, a full marathon, or a squash match, I would try to eat very light. So I'll have a little bit of dal, a
Okay.
little bit of rice, and very, very little, maybe like a grilled fish or a grilled chicken. So I get a bit of the proteins, the fats, and carbs, because you need a little bit of everything. So normally for me, it would be 3 hours before, and then just a little before, like 1 hour before, I'd have like a banana, or half an hour before, a banana, straight energy, or I would have some sort of protein bar, something that I have tried before. It has worked for me. I just do what I do in training the same day on match day. You don't want to change anything.
Right.
That's
right.
the main thing.
Also, the food consumption is
Everything is practically the same. If I'm in an international place, rice is available anywhere, and a little bit of chicken or fish is available. So no spices, no
Okay.
fried, none of that. I generally don't eat much of that anyways, but especially like no pizza, no burgers, none of that. That can really go downhill from there.
right.
I love that on my cheat days, but
Okay. So, how many times do you have your cheat days in a week?
So I would say I give myself in a week, generally not, but it would be once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, so once every 2 weeks, I love pizza, so I try to have like a pizza, or my wife maybe get a burger, or go out and eat some food.
Okay, super. Okay, so how do you ensure you're getting enough protein to support your training and recovery? Because protein is a very important aspect when it comes to
Absolutely.
the recovery part
Absolutely.
and muscle building also. So, do you rely on protein powder, shakes, or natural food sources? What is
Yeah,
your
so I do a bit
preference?
of both because
Okay.
to eat, say, generally the rule of thumb, I'm fairly scientific about this, but you should have 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of body weight. So,
Okay.
say if I'm 140 pounds, for example, you should have 140 grams of protein. Now, that to do naturally speaking is very hard, and I'm not someone with a big appetite. So, I try to do half or maybe 2/3 with natural food, and then I'll have like 1 protein shake a day. Again, fast enough is what I use. Easy, it's after workout 10-15 minutes, and I just drink it while mixing with water. So, I try to have 2/3 in natural sources and then 1/3 in like a whey protein.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Have you used energy bars or gels? Gels, you've mentioned you are
Yeah.
not used to it. Okay, so we'll just stick to the energy bars during long training sessions. If so, which brands or flavors have worked well for you, and how do you determine when to consume it, how much to consume it, so the quantity and timing?
So I have not had any protein bars specifically during runs because I feel protein sometimes a little heavy.
Okay.
But what I can go to every time is a Kit Kat. I love a simple, like a little Kit Kat. I think the body I try to again have a certain amount of grams of carbs every hour I run.
Okay.
So that is roughly about 25 grams.
Mm-hmm.
So if my body is feeling, the body is very intelligent. It tells you what it needs, and because I've obviously done enough of this in my life, it's aware of what I need. So sometimes I feel I need salty food, so I'll have crackers, which I keep. Or sometimes it says I need sugary food, so I'll have a chocolate. But direct energy, like in the runs, it doesn't matter what you eat because you're gonna burn everything anyways. So it's kind of what your body craves, because you have to keep the mind happy too. If I want sweet but I have salty, sometimes I feel nauseous and I feel like puking. So I give it exactly what it needs, and it knows what it needs, and I give it that.
Right, so the body and the mind works.
It works incredible.
Right.
I started realizing it after a few long runs. I'm like, wait, my body's like, yesterday I ran 21k and I wanted chocolate, but today I've run 21k and it feels like I can't even touch chocolate. So no, it tells you what it needs, and that's why you have to listen to your body as well. Yeah, very important.
That's rightly said, that you have to listen.
You have to.
What your body requires, it asks from you
Exactly.
when you are having that.
Even on the physical components, sometimes people want to push through pain and all that.
True.
I have pushed through a lot of pain in my life. I know that, I've gone, but like for example, one of my long runs, I had to do a 65k training run before going to Comrades. And at 25k, my Achilles, for the first time in my life, started hurting me. And I was so worried because it was a very unique thing. And we were running all night. We were running from 12 at night to 9 in the morning.
Oh my God.
In the jungles alone. And I said, God, like, how will I go through another 50 kilometers on this, or 60 or whatever? I stopped. I simply said, I have Comrades, about 3 weeks away. I will finish this run in a few days once I go to the physio and check it out.
Right.
But do not push through a chronic problem. Understand your problem. Again, the body will tell you how bad it is. So listen to your body.
True. And if you push more, it's going to lead to injury.
I was scared that what if now I push and I finish this run, but what if my Comrades doesn't happen? You have to focus on the final event, not on that training run.
Right. So, of course, you require gears and apparels to support you in the events. So, what factors do you consider when choosing your shoes when it comes to the running shoes for ultramarathons? I'm like, how do you go about it? So,
for me, specifically speaking, I have always been a real lover of Nike clothing.
Okay.
For me, just as a squash player, as a young guy, I got very comfortable. It's quite soft, it's not crazy expensive, and overall it's very durable. Means you can use it multiple times for many months before you feel like it's done. Especially the shoes. So for me, clothing and shoes have actually quite been mostly Nike my entire life.
Okay.
I find it very comfortable, and I just know what I need from them. It's not, I don't complicate it. If I find one thing that works, I'll buy 10 of them. And I just use it, that whole season I'll just use it. So for me, it's easier to do that than try to keep finding new things. So for me, my running gear and my shoes have been predominantly Nike.
Right. Okay. So what do you suggest in terms of changing your shoes? Because that people face injuries many a times when the shoes have worn out, but they really don't understand that you cannot use it any further.
Yeah.
You have to have a change in your shoes.
Absolutely.
So how would you suggest?
So I'll say two things. One, when we tend to buy only one pair of shoes.
Okay.
Now, actually what you should do is buy 2 pairs of shoes and keep rotating them every week.
Okay.
That's actually a very smart way of doing it. So say you use shoe A on week 1, then you use shoe B on week 2, like that. Then you go back to A. So the longevity of the shoes actually goes through a lot more.
Okay.
So that is a really good system of doing it. Also too, if you start finding that the shoe is just not feeling as cushiony anymore, change it. Like if it's based on your livelihood, if it's gonna hurt you, if it's gonna eventually make your runs worse. Like I was feeling that yesterday.
Okay.
I actually started feeling that in the run. I ran the Comrades in that shoe, but now I've done over 300-400 kilometers. So I was like, wait, I'm not feeling as cushiony anymore. So I simply said, no, I have to change it. So I went and bought another one. And also orthotic insoles. I don't know if you know what that is, but right, so like custom made insoles based on everyone's foot is different. Some have more arches, some are more flat feet. So that is very important. I have an orthotics guy in Bombay who's been giving me my custom made insoles for now 5 years for squash and now running. Again, life changing. Because I was getting certain pains in my knees or my back, which you get every day, but once you get the biomechanics right from the way your foot falls, because all the pressure falls on your foot in anything we do. If you get that pressure taken off, your entire body will start correcting itself.
Right.
So the right shoes and the right insoles also make a huge difference.
Right. And also you feel very light on your feet when you have a proper pair of shoes.
And of course, I know it sounds strange, but the weight of our body also, you have to be very
we don't want to be overweight for what
Mhm.
we're trying to do.
True.
Yeah, if I'm a wrestler, if I'm a, maybe then I can be a little heavier, but now as a runner or a squash player, you have to be very lean and be as light, because each kilo we had of our body, it impacts your joints.
Right. And you have to carry that and run along.
Exactly, for hours.
Hmm.
So one more kilo on my body, say from being unhealthy for a week, for example, will aid that much more on my calves, on my ankles, my knees, my hips, and I'll feel it. So I know where I have to be to perform at my best.
True, true.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's come to the recovery part.
Yeah.
So, how do you term recovery in terms of your training sessions? And are there any critical, injuries which you faced over the period of
Yeah.
time when it comes to ultra running?
Yeah, so recovery is equally important to training, where people lack and say, oh, I've overtrained. No, you've under recovered. That's the problem.
Right.
And recovery, for example, for me, I do mobility every day for 15-20 minutes
Okay.
before I start my workout, and then I do my warm up to even start the workout. So for me, it's different. I'm a professional, right? I've gone through almost years living like a professional, so I do that. I have the time to do it. But even 5-7 minutes of a warm up before do your workout, and another 10 minutes of cool down for, say, someone average doing it, or a professional, of course, your whole life is based on that. So recovery in terms of stretching, very important. Maybe a swim once or twice a week to relax the body. A steam and sauna help in relaxing the muscles. And then again, a massage. Massage is also very important, to get the muscles released, because sometimes a stretch can't release a muscle a certain way versus someone actually massaging your deep tissue. And then finally, I would say physiotherapy.
Okay.
It's very important. Like, I go to physio at least once in 2 weeks, once in 1 week. The other day, after the comrades, I wanted to run so fast, and I was like, not possible. But I tried. I was feeling a little pain in my knee, so I went to the physio and he corrected it, So very important to do everything together to get the best out of yourself.
Right.
Yeah, so recovery is super important, but also the nutrition aids in recovery, the protein aids in recovery. So there's so many different components to recovery.
Right. So the new form of recovery is the foam roller.
Foam roller, yeah.
So how would you rate that? Because I mean, like, that's the most efficient recovery.
I practically foam roll every day.
Okay.
I find that I don't use the foam roller, but it's a ball
Okay.
in terms of a foam. It's the same thing, but I feel it just goes a little deeper. So, but I do it every day. Every single day, I do it about 10 to 15 minutes before my workout, and specifically in the parts that I'm feeling tight that day, I can't roll the whole body. But in running, it's more calves, it's hamstrings, it's quads, and lower back. So I do that every day. I really find it effective.
Great. Okay, do you use any gadgets or devices to track your performance or progresses during these sessions? Because you need to monitor your heart
course,
rate,
yeah.
the pace you are going. So what do you prefer?
So yeah, I do. One is, I'm actually wearing it right now. It's a Garmin. It's the
Right.
Garmin Forerunner 945. It's the older one. I'm actually sponsored by them, so I've been with them for a few years now, and I absolutely love it. Garmin for me has been like life-changing in terms of how I'm able to map my workouts, check my statistics, go back and check out how I've improved on my runs and my training and recovery. And then I use something called a Whoop, which is a very unique thing. It has no screen. It has only an app,
Okay.
but it's kind of revolutionized the way we train. It records strain, like how hard you're working,
Okay.
your recovery, your sleep. It does everything. So it's a little different to Whoop. It's a little different to Garmin Whoop, but overall it's also incredible. So I use both.
Okay.
But again, then my whole livelihood is like based on this. I love it. So the more information I can get from these devices, the better I can perform for myself.
So which is more efficient?
It's different. So I would say for running specifically, I think Garmin is more efficient.
Okay.
But in overall performance and overall recovery, I feel Whoop is more efficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is where you monitor your recovery process?
Correct, exactly. And Whoop has not sponsored me anything. I buy their product, and I use it, and I've used it now for almost 4 years.
Oh, that's great.
So it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the mobile application
Correct.
based, and that is
Yeah.
what you use. Okay. So how do you balance the use of technology in tracking your progress while still staying in tune with your body's natural cues and instincts during the race day?
I say the one word is experience.
Alright.
That's truly the answer, because there are days where like my Whoop or Garmin both tell me, oh, you're so tired and you've woken up in the red and your heart rate was elevated and all, which I understand, but then my body's feeling great, so I'm like, okay, I'll push. But some days where I'm feeling, it's showing me green recovery. Green means like, oh, really high recovery, but I'm feeling very lethargic. And that days I listen to my body. But again, the best indicator for me specifically is my instinct. But that comes from experience. If you're a novice runner or you've done it only a few times, then obviously check your statistics. But eventually, how you feel is how you should go ahead and think about it.
Okay, super.
Yeah.
So, before we end the podcast, one advice would you like to give to the young generation who want to get into sports?
I'll say a few things. One, I think sports is the greatest thing ever invented. Sports and athletics, period. What it can give you, of course, we all want to make money in life, and I run my own company as well while doing all of this. So don't get me wrong, it's very important to have business, and that is our bread and butter. But what sport can give you is something that is it's not tangible. Yes, we can win in tournaments and we can win races or we can complete things, but the internal character to take on anything we want to do in life, I think drastically comes from sport above anything else. Because we have to face adversity again and again and lose and win and go through tough times which only you know what you feel. But the times you can overcome that and try it one more time and win, and then lose again and then win. Those victories are something that I've gone through enough of them for lifetimes. And that has given me the most strength in my weakest moments, to know that sport has given me this, athletics. To go through tough times and to overcome them, I don't think there's any greater satisfaction. And I'm sure maybe other people feel differently, and I hope to inspire someone by this, even one person, but just go after your dream. Just go after it, because we have only one life.
True.
And even though we're here for a long time, it's still a short period of time. So go after it. What's the worst? You'll fail. Okay, you get up and try it again. Nothing changes if you fail. And I think that comes from my parents. They just said, go for it. What's going to happen, right? We love you no matter what. And I think that's an amazing thing to have from your parents. So go after it. Be relentless in your pursuit for anything you do. If it's not sport, something else. And go in with a winning mentality all the time. But regardless of if you win or lose, just know that believe in yourself, work hard, be consistent, have patience, and you will eventually succeed.
That's right. Thank you so much for your time and effort.
Thank you,
It was
thank
wonderful
you.
having a conversation with you on this.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for taking the time to invite me here. And
It's a pleasure to have you today.
yeah, this was an excellent conversation, and brought back a lot of memories for me, and I'm really grateful to be here.
Many thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Till then, stay fit, stay strong, and race above.